Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Tonight's story doesn't begin with a sweet introduction or a fairy tale marriage. No names, no backstories, just a man, a party, and one sentence that shattered everything. I mean, we're not really a couple. That's what she said, out loud, in front of at least 30 people. And yes, at my own party. I stood 10 feet away, holding a plate with a half-eaten slider, listening to her voice rise above the music and the polite chatter. There was laughter, not the kind that says, ha ha, good one, but the kind that lingers, the kind people remember, the kind that wraps around your throat. I didn't move. My face didn't flinch, but inside, something cold and slow began to crack. I think the worst part wasn't what she said. It was how easily it came out of her mouth, like it had been there, waiting, curled up behind her teeth for months, maybe years. A joke, she called it, but no one really laughed. They just looked at each other and then at me, the way people do when they wonder whether they should pretend it didn't happen or offer condolences. The music kept playing. She kept talking, and I just stood there. I had planned this whole night. The lights, the food, the drinks, the guest list, every detail, down to the ridiculous custom cake with her favorite quote piped across the frosting. I spent 2 weeks arranging things so she'd feel appreciated, so we would feel like something again. And then that sentence, that one sentence, dismissive, casual, cruel. I walked out, not out of the house, not yet, just out of that moment. I set the plate down on a side table and slipped into the hallway like a shadow. The coat closet was open. I stepped inside, shut the door, and let the dark swallow me. That's when the shaking started. My hands first, then my legs. I leaned against the wall, listening to the muffled noise outside the door. Her voice again, still laughing, still telling stories, like I hadn't just been gutted. You ever try screaming without sound? It hurts your throat. That night, I learned that. I stayed in that closet for 12 minutes. I counted, and when I came out, the party was still alive, but I wasn't. Not in the same way. Something had shifted, and it wasn't going back. I smiled at the guests. I cleared a few empty glasses. I even thanked a couple people for coming. I played the part, and she never noticed I was gone. Not once. Later, when the house had gone quiet and she was upstairs, snoring gently with a sleep mask over her eyes, I sat at the kitchen table and started writing this. Not because I'm brave, not because I have a plan, but because sometimes the only way to make sense of a moment like that is to say it out loud to strangers. That sentence, "We're not really a couple," has been playing on a loop in my head for hours. And I think it's time I find out what else she's been saying, or hiding, or doing. Because no matter what I uncover, I won't be the silent half of this story anymore. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the living room couch, the one with the scratchy fabric we always said we'd replace, but never did, staring at the ceiling fan spinning slow circles above me. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again. We're not really a couple. I tried to convince myself it was just a throwaway joke, a careless sentence. But there was something behind her tone, something deliberate, measured, almost like she wanted to test how far she could push it. By 6 a.m., the sky was shifting from charcoal to gray. I made coffee and sat at the table, still in the same clothes from the night before. She walked into the kitchen barefoot, hair tied up messily, humming like she hadn't just obliterated my dignity in front of everyone we know. She didn't ask why I hadn't come to bed, didn't mention the party. She just poured a cup of coffee, scrolled through her phone, and said she was meeting Ellie from work for brunch. I nodded, didn't trust my voice. After she left, I stood in the hallway for a full minute, hand hovering over the door. I wasn't going to do it. I hate snooping. I always told myself that if I ever had to look through her things, it meant the relationship was already over. But that sentence at the party had flipped a switch in me, and now I needed to know. Her laptop was open on the living room armchair. I tapped the trackpad, screen lit up. No password. That felt too easy. My hands were shaking again. I opened her messages. The name that hit me first wasn't Ellie. It was Brad. Brad Thompson. Her colleague from marketing. The guy she said was married. The guy who had apparently helped her set up the sound system for my party. I remembered shaking his hand that night. He'd smiled at me like he was congratulating a child for tying his shoes. Their chat history was long. Weeks worth. Dozens of late-night exchanges. I scrolled faster than I could read. Flirty jokes. Private nicknames. Inside jokes I didn't understand. And then, your face when I whispered that last night. I wanted to rip your shirt off in the elevator. You should have. I wouldn't have stopped you this time. I stopped breathing. My eyes darted across the lines, desperate to find something, anything, that would make it make sense. But the truth was right there, written in cheerful emojis and casual cruelty. My wife was cheating on me. She was sleeping with him, texting him from our bed, letting him set up speakers in my house, making me thank him while he probably laughed about it later with her. And suddenly, the sentence from the party wasn't a joke. It was a confession. I sat there for hours, reading through every line. My stomach twisted, but I couldn't look away. I don't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the fact that I wasn't surprised. Maybe, deep down, I'd already known. Maybe I just didn't want to believe someone could pretend so well. But now I knew, and I wasn't going to pretend anymore either. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just closed the laptop and made a quiet decision. I wasn't confronting her. Not yet. I wanted to see how far she would go. Because if she thought that sentence at the party was her power play, she had no idea who she'd just challenged. She came home that evening like nothing had happened. Breezy, hair curled, smelling like citrus and perfume I hadn't smelled on her before. She tossed her keys in the bowl, kicked off her shoes, and flopped onto the couch with the kind of dramatic sigh that used to mean, "Let's cuddle." Now it just sounded like performance. I asked how brunch was. She said it was fine, but Ellie ordered something weird with goat cheese, and they ended up laughing for 2 hours straight. She was glowing. I mean actually glowing. Like someone who'd gotten away with something. I could have confronted her right then, thrown Brad's name out like a live grenade, and watched what exploded. But I didn't. Instead, I just nodded and said I was glad she had fun. It was strange. Once you stop trusting someone, everything they do becomes evidence. The way she double-checked her phone notifications. The way she angled the screen away from me while texting. The new lingerie bag I saw in the laundry that still had tags attached. She was sloppy now. Or maybe just overconfident. But I wasn't going to act on rage. I'd done that in the past. Snap judgments, emotional outbursts. And every time, I was the one who ended up looking unstable. This time, I needed facts. I needed a plan. So I did something I'm not proud of. I went to my friend Daryl. He owns a security company. And asked if there was a way to monitor devices in the house without, looking like I was monitoring devices in the house. He gave me a discreet recorder, voice-activated, with a long battery life and storage for days of audio. I placed it under the cushion in the guest room chair, where she often took calls. She said it had better light for Zoom meetings, but I'd noticed lately she wasn't using the laptop, just her phone. That night, while she was in the shower humming some tune I didn't recognize, I slid the recorder into place and walked away like nothing happened. For 3 days, I left it untouched. I acted normal, helped with dishes, talked about work, even agreed to go to her cousin's wedding. All the while, I felt like a volcano under a dinner napkin. I didn't sleep. I barely ate. But I waited. When she left for work that Friday, I pulled the recorder out and sat on the back porch, headphones in, ready for the worst. I wish I could say I was shocked. But it was worse than that. I was numb. Her voice came through clearly. I can't wait until this wedding crap is over. It's getting harder to keep up the happy wife act. He still doesn't suspect anything. It's actually kind of fun. Then laughter. Male laughter. Brad's. "You're brutal," he said, chuckling. "I know," she replied. "But honestly, I think he still believes we're fine. He just blends into the background." That one hit me in the gut. I didn't even know I had tears in me until that moment. Her words played on loop in my brain. Blends into the background. That's what I was to her now. Wallpaper. An accessory to her secret. But she wasn't going to get away with it. I didn't know how I'd do it yet. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to hurt her. I just wanted her to feel what it was like to be made invisible. To be the one who didn't know everything. So I hit record. This time, with my phone. I began logging everything. Calls, receipts, behaviors. Not because I planned to ruin her. But because when the time came, I wanted her to know that I saw everything. She might have made me the punchline, but I was about to write the ending. For the first time in a long time, I started looking at my own house like a stranger. Not like a husband. Not like a man trying to patch holes in a marriage already halfway underwater. But like a detective. Like someone trying to map out a crime scene while the suspect walks around brushing her teeth and asking about dinner plans. That Friday night, she came home late, again. This time she didn't bother with an excuse. No, Ellie from work. No brunch. No fake phone call in the driveway. just the sound of keys, heels, and a humming that didn't match the woman I used to know. Her lipstick was smeared just slightly, and her perfume was stronger than usual. I watched from the kitchen as she kicked off her shoes, tossed her coat over the railing, and opened the fridge like she owned the world. She glanced at me and smiled. "Did you eat?" I said yes. She didn't ask what. Didn't care. I excused myself and went upstairs, closing the bedroom door behind me. But I wasn't tired. I was boiling quietly. Not with rage, but with clarity. There's a difference. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was building something. Not for her. For me. By morning, she was gone again. Running errands, her note said. I found it taped to the coffee maker like she thought she was being cute. That's when I left her a note of my own. It wasn't dramatic. Just a folded piece of paper placed carefully in the drawer where she keeps her skincare. She opens it every night without fail. The note read, "If we're just roommates with rings, then maybe it's time we discuss new lease terms." I didn't sign it. I didn't need to. When she came home that night, she didn't mention it. But I knew she found it. She was quieter than usual. Cooked dinner, but didn't eat much. Sat beside me on the couch, but didn't speak. I watched her scroll through her phone with rapid thumbs. Not smiling. Not laughing. Just reading. She thought it was a warning. A passive-aggressive jab. She didn't know what I'd already recorded. What I'd already copied. The screenshots. The audio files. The cloud backups. The next morning, I woke up early and left the house before she did. I drove around town aimlessly for an hour, thinking about who I used to be before this mess. Before I married someone who could smile in my face and stab me in the back with a joke. I parked near the lake we used to visit when we were dating. We'd sit on the hood of her old Civic and talk about where we wanted to live, what kind of dog we'd get, what we'd name our kids. None of that ever happened. We got a house with beige walls and empty hallways, and a silence that grew too loud to ignore. That same day, I printed a few things. Not a lot. Just enough to remind her that I wasn't blind. Messages between her and Brad. A few photos. A calendar of her business trips that coincided a little too perfectly with his hotel check-ins. I sealed them in an envelope and left it on her nightstand. No words. No threats. Just evidence. When I got home that night, she was already in bed, pretending to sleep. The envelope was gone. So was the note I'd left in the skincare drawer. And for the first time in weeks, she didn't say goodnight. Didn't even fake it. She knew. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I wasn't stopping here. I'd been invisible for too long. Now, I wanted her to wonder what I'd do next. The silence between us became a third presence in the house. It didn't just sit there, it pulsed. It filled rooms before either of us entered them. It echoed down the hallway even when neither of us said a word. After I left the envelope on her nightstand, she avoided eye contact for 2 full days. 2 whole days where she walked around the house like it wasn't hers. Suddenly, she was quieter, gentler, even nicer. The woman who once joked about us being roommates with rings was now asking if I wanted coffee, folding my laundry, and pausing her phone calls when I entered a room. I didn't play along. I didn't give her anger or comfort. I gave her nothing. That's what she gave me for months. Nothing. And now she could taste what it felt like. On the 3rd evening, she cracked. She came into the living room slowly, barefoot, wearing one of those oversized sweaters she always used to wear on cold nights. The ones that made her look small, like she wanted to disappear. I was watching a documentary I didn't care about. She stood there for a moment before speaking. "Forrest," she said softly, "can we talk?" I muted the TV. Didn't look at her. Sure. She didn't sit. She fidgeted with her sleeves. "I know you saw the messages. I know you found all of it." I nodded once. Still didn't look at her. "I want to explain," she said. I turned my head. Finally met her eyes. "I don't want an explanation. I want honesty." She hesitated, then sat on the edge of the coffee table like she used to when we had real conversations. "It didn't mean anything," she whispered. "It was stupid. A mistake. It got out of hand. I didn't mean to. To sleep with him." I interrupted. "To lie for months. To turn our marriage into a punchline at a party?" Her mouth opened, then closed. She looked down. I waited, but the silence swallowed her again. She tried to reach for my hand. I pulled away. "I didn't know how lonely I was until I started listening to you talk to him," I said. "That's what broke me. Not the affair. The fact that you could be that version of yourself with someone else, and I didn't even recognize you anymore." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I felt Nothing. Not anger. Not sorrow. Just the cold awareness that I didn't believe a word she said anymore. Not even the tears. I want to fix this, she said suddenly. We can go to therapy. Or take space. Or, I don't know. I want to try. I stood up. Trying comes before you cheat. Before you erase someone's worth in public and call it a joke. I grabbed my keys from the counter. You can try all you want now. I'm just not sure I'm the one you'll be trying with. I walked out without another word, leaving her sobbing into her hands. Maybe it was real. Maybe it was guilt. But it didn't matter anymore. Because while she was busy scripting apologies, I was already thinking 2 steps ahead. Not revenge. Not violence. Nothing that would give her the drama she was probably expecting. Just a slow, quiet unraveling. I wasn't going to burn everything down. I was going to let her sit in the ashes of what she thought was invincible. The night I walked out, I didn't go far. I sat in my car, parked just down the street, watching the porch light flicker on and off like it couldn't make up its mind. That house used to feel like safety. Now it felt like a stage I never asked to be part of. One where I'd played the fool for far too long. She didn't call. Didn't text. I think she assumed I'd come back after cooling off, like I always had during our rare arguments. But this time was different. I wasn't cooling off. I was waking up. I spent the night at a cheap motel, the kind with scratchy towels and humming vending machines in the hallway. I stared at the ceiling for hours, the room buzzing with neon light and questions I didn't want to answer. But somewhere between 3 and 4 a.m., a strange calm settled in. It wasn't peace. It was precision. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I went home without knocking. My key still worked. She was in the kitchen wearing a bathrobe, pouring coffee into a mug she had once bought for me. It said, "Best husband ever." That irony nearly made me laugh. She looked startled when she saw me, then hopeful. "You're back." I nodded. "Just here to get a few things." Her face shifted. "We should talk more. I think." "I'm not here to talk, Rachel," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'm here to pack a bag and make a copy of our financial records." That got her attention. Her smile disappeared. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've been stupid, but I'm not blind anymore," I said, heading upstairs. "And I'm not going to be the man you tiptoe around while you play house with someone else." She followed me, her voice climbing. "You're seriously overreacting. We had one bad stretch, and you're blowing everything up like it's some soap opera." I turned in the hallway and faced her. "No, Rachel. You blew it up. You started the fire. I'm just done standing in the smoke." Downstairs, I grabbed a folder from the drawer where I'd been quietly collecting everything. Copies of emails, text threads, phone records, even receipts. I'd spent days organizing it all. Not to use against her. Not yet. But to protect myself. I didn't know how ugly this would get, and I wasn't going in blind. "I'm not staying here tonight," I said. "I've got a lawyer appointment Monday. And if you think this is a bluff, don't. Because the man you laughed at during your cute little party, he's not here anymore." She looked stunned, as if she'd never actually believed I'd do anything. As if my quiet nature had always guaranteed her safety. But that was her mistake. She thought silence meant weakness. It didn't. It meant I was listening, learning, waiting. She reached for my arm. "We don't have to do this." I pulled away. "We already did." Then I walked out again. No yelling. No door slam. Just the soft click of a man reclaiming his life. But I wasn't done yet. Because if Rachel thought this was the end of the story, she was about to find out what real consequences look like. I didn't walk away from our house and vanish. I walked toward the one thing she'd never expect me to do, speak. Not with shouting. Not with threats. But with truth. Because for years, Rachel counted on one thing to keep her misdeeds safe, my silence. She banked on me being too passive, too unsure of myself, too desperate to keep the peace. But something had changed in me the night of that party. The humiliation didn't just hurt, it flipped a switch. And now I wasn't interested in peace. I was interested in clarity. I moved into a short-term rental on the other side of town, a small furnished apartment above an old bookstore. It smelled like dust and yellowing paperbacks, but I loved it. It was quiet, honest, real. No designer lamps. No staged photos on the mantle. Just walls that didn't lie. I didn't tell anyone what had happened. Not my coworkers. Not even my sister, who had always been suspicious of Rachel's charm. Instead, I started planning something that felt more like closure than confrontation. 2 weeks after I moved out, I sent out invitations. They looked like they were for a renewal of vows ceremony. Elegant cardstock, gold foil, wax-sealed envelopes. The kind of thing Rachel would have killed to plan. They read, "You're cordially invited to an evening of truth. Formal attire. RSVP required. No gifts necessary. No location. Just a QR code. A digital RSVP form. And a dress code that implied celebration." I sent one to every person who had been at our party. The one where Rachel had humiliated me. Every friend, every family member, even Brad. Yes, him. I wanted him to show up. I needed him to hear it too. Rachel received hers by mail. I know because she texted me. "What the hell is this?" I didn't reply. 3 hours later. "Is this a joke? Are you trying to get revenge or something?" Again, silence. I could almost hear her pacing from miles away. She hated not being in control, not knowing. For once, the mystery wasn't hers to hold over my head. It was mine. The RSVP page led to a private livestream link. One night only. A 15-minute video I had filmed in a single take, sitting in the bookstore apartment under warm lighting, speaking directly into the camera. I didn't rant. I didn't cry. I just told the truth. I talked about our marriage. About how I believed in us longer than I should have. I spoke about the things I ignored, the signs I missed, and the pain of being laughed at by the one person who promised to protect me. I read the messages, the lines she'd written to Brad, the ones that chipped away at my self-worth until I stopped recognizing myself. Then, I looked into the lens and said something I had never said out loud before. I wasn't weak. I was loyal. And you used that loyalty like a shield while you made me a joke. So this night, is not about shaming you. It's about reclaiming the story you tried to write without me. I ended the video with one sentence. "This is the last time I speak your name." The video was scheduled to go live at 8 p.m. sharp. I sent one last message to Rachel a few minutes before. "You might want to watch. It's the only closure you're going to get." She didn't respond. But at 8:03 p.m., the viewer count jumped. Dozens of names popped up on the stream. Hers was one of them. She watched every second. And I didn't flinch once. The morning after the live stream, I woke up to a dozen missed calls, half of them from unknown numbers, the rest from people I hadn't heard from in years. There were voicemails too, some apologizing for not noticing what was happening sooner, others offering support, one even from my old shop teacher who said, "You stood taller last night than I've ever seen." But there was nothing from Rachel, not even a message. She didn't rage. She didn't beg. She simply vanished from my phone and eventually from my thoughts. A week later, I finalized the paperwork with my lawyer. There were no dramatic courtroom scenes, just a quiet signature and a long, exhaling breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for years. I walked out of that office into a gray, rainy afternoon. But to me, it felt like sunlight. I wasn't sad. I wasn't bitter. I felt free. And that freedom didn't feel like revenge. It felt like truth finally had space to live. I moved my things out of the house for good. Left behind what didn't matter. Took only what I needed and what was mine. The final thing I grabbed was the old best husband ever mug. Not because it meant anything anymore, but because I wanted to remember who I tried to be. Not for her. For myself. 2 months passed. I had finally seen myself. Rachel's chapter was closed. No angry posts. No smear campaigns. Just silence. A silence I had earned. A silence that felt like peace. The funny thing is, I used to think strength looked like forgiveness or fighting for someone who didn't fight for you. But now I know, sometimes, strength is simply leaving quietly, with your dignity intact, with the truth on your side, and with a heart that still knows how to hope. I don't know what comes next, and honestly, I don't need to. Because whatever it is, it will be on my terms. No more shrinking to fit someone else's comfort. No more being the background character in my own life. I'm no longer the joke at the party. I'm the man who walked out and never looked back. Thank you for following this journey on Reddit Confessions.